Hey guys, so I just want to talk about a trick that almost all content creators use to keep you hooked in watching their videos. And I'm seeing it in every single successful channel that I see, which means that the people that aren't using this trick aren't channels that I'm seeing on YouTube. That means that if you aren't using this trick, you're really holding yourself back to the point where you don't even show up on most people's homepages. MrBeast does it, Emma Chamberlain does it, Casey Neistat does it, even I'm doing it right now. And to prove it's working, you're still here, aren't you? We probably just crossed the 30-second mark, which is when more than half the people usually drop off by. And if you're still here watching, why is that? Do you want to know what I'm talking about? I'm probably egging it on a little bit too much in this intro, and it might actually be detrimental to this video. But basically, I'm trying to build intrigue in a specific way. And I'm wondering if you guys are already catching on to it, but we're going to talk about it. But before we do, we should go back to 1920s Berlin, just to understand a little bit of the history of this trick slash psychological hack. To set the scene, there was a psychology professor named Kurt Lewin, and he was at a restaurant with some of his students, and they were there for a few hours ordering round after round of food and drinks. And the waiter was there helping them the entire time. And at the very end, when they asked for their order, they asked the waiter for their bill, but the waiter wasn't taking notes the entire time. He was just going everything based off of what was in his head. And he was able to list off every single thing that they ordered and give them a total at the end without needing to get any computer or look at any notes that he had taken. And all of the students and the professor were pretty impressed by this feat. So they ended up talking for like another 30 minutes. And when the waiter came back over, they asked him for the order again, probably because they were interested to see how well he was able to remember things and wondered how he was able to do it. But he just ended up looking at them like they were crazy because in his mind, the table was closed. And he basically just said, like, I don't remember what you ordered. Your table closed half an hour ago. So it's kind of interesting that just half an hour earlier, even though they were there for hours, it wasn't the duration of time that was the problem. It's not like he forgot after 30 minutes because they were just there for hours and he remembered the entire time. It was the fact that the task was complete in the waiter's mind. And one of the students, Bulma Zygarnik, thought that this was interesting. So she went back to the lab and ran some experiments, and she actually discovered that people remember interrupted tasks basically twice as well as completed ones. And these incomplete tasks or thoughts that people have create mental tension that just drives them to want to resolve it. And that is the Zygarnik effect. And that's the effect we're going to be utilizing in our videos. And let me show you a prime example of this effect in action. Whether you love MrBeast or not, his channel is basically a masterclass in the Zygarnik effect. Just the other day in one of his most recent videos, he used this basically to the extreme. He egged it on even more than I did in the beginning of this video, where he had 100 children play tug of war against one of the world's strongest men. And he teased this as the very first minute of the video. Like, he set everything up, they were about to start, and then I forget how he changed the subject, but he basically changed the subject and they went to a different scenario and they were playing golf instead or something like that. And he didn't talk about that for another 10 minutes in the middle of the video, where he didn't even have them play tug of war again. He teased it by making the strongest man pull an airplane, and the kid still didn't compete against him. And then it wasn't until the very end of the video that he finally showed the results of that interaction. And I feel like he was probably thinking that that was the most interesting comparison that leaves a really striking question in somebody's mind, like, who would win? Even if it's a question that you've never thought of in your life before, like, can 100 children beat the world's strongest man? It makes you want to know the answer just because he posed the question and dangled the solution in front of your face, basically. And that's the Zygarnik effect working at its peak, and definitely MrBeast defied a lot. So you don't have to do it that extreme. And I actually think if you're just starting out on YouTube, or maybe you have some experience but you're just not familiar with this effect in general or this concept, the best way to start approaching it is by doing the inverse of it. So instead of thinking, what's the best way I could hook people and keep them to the end, and what's that thing that builds the curiosity gap, instead just think simply, what do I not want to give away in the beginning of the video? Because a lot of people will start their video by giving up the most interesting or curiosity building facts, and they will put it in even the thumbnail and the title, not even just in the first 30 seconds. So you really don't want to just sabotage your video by putting the interesting nuggets right in the beginning, because people will get that and they'll not appreciate it. They'll think that they got the gist of the video and they'll click away. For example, if I started this video by just saying, there's a trick that every content creator uses. It's the Zygarnik effect. And it is basically just creating curiosity loops and opening with a question and not giving the answer for a while. And then we finally give the answer and people watch the entire time. That's basically the video in a gist, but people would click away right after that and they wouldn't value it as much and they wouldn't remember it because I gave the whole context of how it was created. So now you can really remember that story so much better because it's not just some random vocabulary word that you learned. You really got to understand the origin of it, how it's important for YouTube. And in just a minute, we're going to learn how to apply it using 3 simple steps that anybody could basically do in every video, and is another example of using the Zeigarnik effect, wink wink. But before we do that, I just want to quickly mention that idea of open loops again, because I think it's really important. And I've seen this done in many different videos where you want to chain them together. You can just do one large one like Mr. Beast did, and he probably had a bunch of mini ones in that episode as well. In fact, I know he did. For every little scene, he would give an intro to that scene, and then you'd want to know the answer in that question. So he had a bunch of little loops, but one larger loop, and you just want to keep these open loops open the entire video, and having more than one just gives the viewer even more reason to stick around. And to help you guys implement this in the easiest way possible, I built a app called Creator HQ, and in that app there is a AI script generator that has been trained on YouTube best practices like open loops and the Zeigarnik effect, and it will help guide you through the process of generating a script that works well on YouTube. Just go to creatorhq.com and try it out for free and let me know what you guys think. Okay, so now how do we actually use this in our own videos? And like I mentioned, it's just a simple 3-step process where the first thing you're going to do is identify the payoff. What is the one thing that viewers click the video for? And maybe if you gave it away in the beginning, they'd be more likely to leave because they felt like they got too much information from the video. And then whatever you decide your payoff is what we're going to use in step 2, which is just to tease the payoff early on or build curiosity in it. In the first 10 to 30 seconds of the video, give them a glimpse of it without telling them what it is, and tell them the why of why they should care. You're basically like a car salesman trying to explain the feeling of driving the car rather than the stats and the buttons and all that stuff. You really want to give them the result that they'll get and the feeling and why it's important rather than the actual details. Those you'll get to later on after you've hooked them with this curiosity bit in the beginning. Some examples of this could be showing a clip of the result without showing how you got there. This is useful for some sort of transformation video where you show like a preview of the final result, but you don't really explain how you got there. If the interesting thing is the how you got there, if the end result is the interesting thing, you might not want to show it because that is giving it away too early on. But you might need to use some judgment there because that's a bit of a gray area. You can also ask a really compelling question like Vsauce, the channel, does. He starts every video with one of these compelling questions. But again, you just don't explain it yet in the very beginning. You basically just want to prove that it exists to them and not tell them what it is. And now the third step is simple. You just want to wait and delay that resolution so that way before you deliver the result, you put the meat of your video and give them context, the backstory, like the waiter example that I gave, and I told you about all of the different reasons why, like different channels that weren't using this trick weren't getting views. Basically, you want to strike at their emotional core, but also give compelling context, because since that task is unresolved in their mind and they're wondering what the answer is, they're going to be much more receptive to all the information that you give them because of the Zeigarnik effect, where it's an incomplete task in their mind, so they want to absorb that information and retain it because it's not something that they can close out yet. And something about that just makes it stick in the long term as well. So that is finally the secret to getting people to watch your videos from beginning to end. Thank you guys for watching, and happy creating.